uncritical deference to dogma.
Hmm.
It's not some kind of uncritical orientation toward doctrine. It is the virtuous acknowledgement of the forces of good in your life to allow you to be the best that you can be. And therefore that piety, the remembrance and the reverence and the resilience and resistance, for me, it always begins with family, you see. That's why Toni Morrison, Catholic. A lot of people don't talk about Toni Morrison's Catholicism. She was my dear sister. We taught together for 20 years. Went to Mass. Catholic. All of her family. AME, and then like me, funky Holy Ghost Baptist. That's her family. One from Jim Crow, Georgia, one from Jim Crow, Alabama. She's Catholic. But what is a fundamental theme in her work?
Family.
Family. Family.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that those precious enslaved folk did after emancipation? Thousands and thousands of black people walking on foot to find their loved ones in their families who had been sold from one state to the other. Just imagine that. Imagine that. Out of 4 million slaves, so many slaves walking, stepping in the name of love. Now I know that might be controversial with R. Kelly these days, but he got his genius. He just got some deep, deep problems. But they were stepping in the name of love of,
Family.
not the abstract family,
Yeah.
individuals who they loved, who had been sold down the river, sold all the way across the nation. And they wouldn't stop until they found their loved ones. And I'm telling you, when the families, and I don't believe in romanticizing family or idealizing family either. You know, all of us have wounds and scars and bruises and variety. I've just been very blessed to have very few. But all of us who want read Freud and others to know how difficult families can be.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing when that family love is in place.
You know, you've been writing about race and politics for decades. And you said back in 1989 that the lack of good alternatives will yield 3 kinds of politics. One, remember this is 1989, sporadic terrorism for impatient, angry, and nihilistic radicals. 2, professional reformism for comfortable, cultivated, and concerned liberals.
Ooh.
And 3, evangelical nationalism for frightened, paranoid, and accusatory conservatives.
Wow. Wow. Brother, you've done your homework, because I don't remember, but I wish I'd written something like that.
No, you
but
did.
I actually did. I appreciate that.
No, so you said this in 1989. Are you ever tempted to say, people, I told you so?
Lord. Well, you know, there's a spiritual that comes out of my great tradition. And it says, I keep so busy serving my Lord. I ain't got time to be telling folk what I said back then. You know what I mean? I'm too busy. I got too many things to do. Too much work to be done. And trying to keep my eye on a kingdom that's intervening in a very, very seemingly weak and feeble way, but in many ways it's as strong as ever if you have the kind of personal relationship with Jesus that I've been blessed to have all my life.
Do you want to address these 3 things I just brought up?
I think that they're useful guiding points for the present. Yeah, I think that it makes some sense. I do. I think it makes some sense. It's not air-proof, you know what I mean? Because there's some hyperbolic, exaggerated language there.
No. You?
Exactly. But it points in the right direction. It really does. I think what I would sad, though, is in our moment of imperial meltdown, when the American empire itself is just being overrun by militarism and materialism and greed and hatred, and spiritual breakdown, which is so sad in terms of indifference toward the vulnerable too often, and thinking somehow that you can do anything without you being accountable and answerable, that there's always prophetic fight back. And those three don't fully capture the prophetic fight back. And it comes in all colors and genders and classes. I think I've made that point before. It's not a function of your gender orientation. It's not a function of your national identity. It's not a function of your skin pigmentation. It's the function of how much courage do you really have when it comes to quest for truth and love of neighbor and love of enemy, which is one people don't like to talk about too much.
We got time.
Yeah, no, because you see, anybody who still has the audacity, like many of us, to try to be disciples of Jesus. You see this in Bonhoeffer's great text, The Cost of Discipleship. You all remember Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the brother who tried to murder Hitler. And he wrestled with that. But the problem is that if you really follow Jesus, you're going to have so many enemies that they cannot be your point of reference, or you end up your life being a parasite on what they say and do. You'll just be reacting to what they say and do over and over and over and over again. So Jesus tells us, recognize that they are made in the image of the same God that you are, and that they are human. They're not demons and devils. They're on the same human continuum that you are. And no matter how good you think about yourself, there's some elements in them that's inside of you. And if you are in self-denial, you could easily be on the road toward a version of their cold-heartedness and mean-spiritedness as you cloak it in your self-satisfaction. But then beyond that is even those folk far removed from you, they have the capacity to undergo conversion, transformation, and end up much more loving than you give them credit for. So if you run into Malcolm Little in 1945, you say, ooh, I see a gangster. No, in 20 years, he'll be one of the greatest speakers, one of the greatest fearless, plain speakers of a concern about the suffering the 20th century produced. You talking about this little Negro right here, Malcolm Little out here pimping and carrying on? That's right. Because he has a capacity to grow, develop, mature, just like you. And of course, the reality is if somebody zeroed in on your life in one of your low moments and said, you think this person got a capacity to be over here being a force for good, what makes you think that? It's because there's always something beyond your own imagination if you are captive to a certain kind of contempt of them and attempt to impose limits of their potential. God means all things are possible. Even that camel getting through the eye of a needle. Right after that is what? All things are possible.